This is the story of Ethan, who thought his life was finally at peace, until he received a letter from Lauren, his ex-girlfriend, promising a truth he never imagined. But what seemed like a reconciliation conversation quickly turned into a nightmare. An explosion, mysterious threats, and a dark secret involving his own brother. As a past full of betrayal and revenge is uncovered, Ethan must decide who to trust. But with each new revelation, the line between enemy and ally becomes more blurred. Who is the real culprit? And how far will Ethan go to uncover a story of deceit, revenge, and family secrets? The sky darkened gradually, enveloped in a reddish hue, as the entire city eagerly awaited the rare lunar eclipse. Ethan Cooper adjusted his camera in the Central Park, eager to capture the perfect moment. Beside him, Lauren, his fiancée, seemed restless, checking her phone more often than usual. "Are you okay, Lauren?" he asked, trying to mask his irritation. "This is a lunar eclipse, not an everyday event." "Sorry, just a work message," she replied, flashing a forced smile Ethan knew all too well. The eclipse began. The crowd erupted in applause as Earth's shadows slowly crept over the moon. Always observant, Ethan noticed Lauren slipping away from the group, heading quietly toward the edge of the park. Driven by an instinct he couldn't explain, he followed her, keeping enough distance to remain unnoticed. That's when he saw something that would shatter his world. Lauren was in another man's arms. A man Ethan knew all too well. His heart raced. His trembling hands gripped the camera as if it were his only anchor. It was Nathan, his older brother, someone he had always admired and trusted. "Do they know I'm here?" he wondered, feeling the weight of betrayal crush him. Ethan stepped back, unsure if he was running from them or from himself. Lost in his swirling thoughts, he stumbled over a branch, the sound breaking the quiet night and drawing their attention. Nathan and Lauren pulled apart abruptly, panic written all over their faces. "Ethan," Lauren began, but he didn't stay to listen. He bolted, the eclipse's darkness masking his tears. What was he supposed to do now? Ethan stood trembling in front of his door, rage coursing through him. But as he turned the knob, he saw something unexpected. An envelope with his name, written in Lauren's familiar handwriting. Ethan walked into the house with the envelope in his hands. The world around him seemed blurry, as if the dense air from the eclipse had seeped into his mind. He sat down at the kitchen table and stared at his name written in Lauren's familiar handwriting. He hesitated. Why a note? Did she know she'd be caught? Taking a deep breath, he opened the envelope. Inside, there was only a piece of paper folded in half. The words were few, but each one felt like a direct hit. "Ethan, we need to talk. There are things you don't know. Tomorrow at 6 p.m. at the corner cafe. Please come alone." He crumpled the note and threw it on the table, the sound of the paper echoing in the silence like a muffled scream. His mind was a mess. Lauren hadn't just betrayed his trust. She still thought she had something to explain. The night felt endless. Ethan replayed his moments with Lauren. The trips, the promises whispered under the stars, the proposal on a lit pier. Now it all felt like a lie. The next morning, he made a decision. He would go to the meeting. Not for her, but for himself. He needed to hear the truth, no matter how painful it was. At exactly 6 p.m., Ethan arrived at the cafe. Lauren was already there, sitting by the window, looking nervous. She looked at him with sad eyes, but Ethan didn't feel pity. Only coldness. "You have 5 minutes," he said, sitting across from her. Lauren took a deep breath. "Ethan, I don't know how to say this. I made a mistake. I didn't want you to find out like this." "Find out what? That you were kissing my brother during the eclipse? Or is there more I don't know?" His voice was low but laced with venom. She hesitated. "There's more." Before she could continue, the cafe doorbell rang and Ethan turned. To his surprise, Nathan walked in, his face carrying the same worried expression Lauren had. Ethan stood up abruptly. What's he doing here? This was between us. It's more complicated than you think, Lauren began, but she was interrupted by Nathan, who was now standing beside the table. He deserves to know, Nathan said, locking eyes with Lauren before turning to Ethan. Ethan, there's something you've never known about our past. Something that will change everything. Ethan stared at the two of them, anger burning inside him. Then say it. Now. Nathan opened his mouth to speak, but before he could say anything, a deafening explosion sounded from outside, making the cafe windows rattle. The explosion hit like thunder, shattering the world around them. Glass from the window splintered, and the cafe plunged into chaos. People screamed, chairs toppled over, and Ethan instinctively ducked, pulling Lauren with him. Nathan grabbed both of them, guiding them away from the windows. "Stay down," he shouted, covering them with his body as the glass shards flew. The next few minutes felt like an eternity. When the sound finally faded, all that remained was a muffled silence, broken only by the groans and murmurs of people around them. "Are you okay?" Nathan asked, his breath heavy. Ethan nodded, his heart racing. When they finally stood up, what they saw outside was surreal. A car was on fire at the corner, with firefighters already working to control the blaze. The smell of smoke filled the air. "Was it an accident?" Lauren whispered, still trembling. Ethan looked at Nathan, who seemed just as confused as he was. "Does it matter now? Let's get out of here." The trio quickly left the cafe, but Ethan wasn't willing to wait any longer to continue the conversation. He led them to a side street, away from the growing crowd around the accident. "Now talk," Ethan demanded, his voice firm. "What were you about to tell me before all of this happened?" Nathan looked at Lauren, who avoided his gaze. He sighed deeply. "I'll start from the beginning. Years ago, when Nathan was still a young adult trying to build his career, he met a woman who changed his life. She was beautiful, captivating, but had a dark side. Their relationship was intense and troubled, ending abruptly when she left him without explanation. "So what?" Ethan asked, impatient. "This woman was Lauren," Nathan admitted, locking eyes with his brother. Ethan felt the ground disappear beneath him. "You're saying Lauren was your girlfriend?" Lauren finally looked up, tears running down her cheeks. "I didn't know you two were brothers when I met you, Ethan. I only found out after we were already together." Ethan took a step back, as if he needed space to process the information. "And you never thought you should tell me?" "I tried so many times," Lauren sobbed. "But time passed, and I was scared to lose you." "This doesn't explain what happened yesterday," Ethan shot back. "Why did I see you two together? Don't tell me it was a moment of weakness, because I won't believe it." Nathan intervened. "Ethan, she's not being completely honest. What you saw was..." He hesitated, choosing his words. "I went to see her because something else is going on. Lauren's been receiving threats." "Threats? What kind of threats?" Ethan asked, now confused. "Threats against me and against you," Lauren replied, her voice trembling. "Someone knows about our past, about my relationship with Nathan, and they're using it against us. They want money, and if they don't get it, they promise to destroy our lives." Ethan looked at both of them, trying to find some truth amid the confusion. "And why now? Why is all of this blowing up all of a sudden?" Nathan handed Ethan a piece of paper. It was a handwritten note, with newspaper clippings pasted on the capitalized letters. "Pay up or watch everything fall apart. Deadline, tomorrow at midnight." As Ethan read, something caught his attention. The sound of fast footsteps behind them. He turned just in time to see a shadow approaching, and before he could react, he felt a sharp blow to his head. Everything went black. When Ethan regained consciousness, a throbbing pain in his head prevented him from moving right away. Everything around him was blurry, and he could smell the metallic tang of rust mixed with dust. The last thing he remembered was the sudden blow and the darkness that consumed him. "Ethan, are you okay?" Lauren's voice pulled him from the daze. He struggled to open his eyes and saw they were in an abandoned warehouse. Lauren was tied to a chair beside him, and Nathan, his hands bound behind his back, was lying on the floor. The faint light of a hanging lamp flickered above them, casting unsettling shadows on the walls. "What? Where are we?" Ethan murmured, trying to sit up. "We've been kidnapped," Lauren said, her voice trembling with fear. "I don't know who did this." "I have an idea," Nathan said, lifting his head with effort. His face was battered and he looked exhausted. "This is connected to the threats." Ethan fought against the ropes binding his hands, but they were tight. He scanned the room, looking for anything he could use. Before he could speak, the sound of footsteps echoed through the warehouse. A man in a suit entered, wearing a cold, calculating expression. He held a gun with chilling calmness. "Well, looks like the trio is finally all together," he said, flashing a cynical smile. "Who are you?" Ethan asked, trying to stay calm. "My name doesn't matter," the man replied. "What matters is that you have something I want. And if you don't cooperate, this is going to end badly for all of you." "We don't have any money," Lauren begged. "Please, just let us go." The man laughed. "Money is just part of what I want. The rest is revenge." "Revenge?" Ethan asked, confused. The man tilted his head. "Ask Nathan. He knows why I'm here." Ethan turned to his brother, who looked away. "Nathan? What is he talking about?" Nathan hesitated before answering. I did something years ago. Something that might have caused all this." "Are you kidding me?" Ethan exploded, struggling again to free his hands. "It's more complicated than it seems," Nathan began, but the man interrupted. "You ruined my life, Nathan," the kidnapper growled, pointing the gun at him. "And now, I'm going to ruin yours. Starting with your brother." Before anyone could react, the man took a step toward Ethan. But suddenly, a noise from outside caught his attention. Sirens and voices were getting closer. "Damn it!" the man shouted, retreating toward the back door. He looked at the three of them. "This isn't over. I'll be back." With one last threatening look, he disappeared into the darkness. The sirens grew louder, but Nathan remained motionless, staring into space. Ethan glared at him, his anger boiling over again. "Who was that man? What did you do?" Nathan finally lifted his gaze, but what he said left Ethan speechless. "He's the reason Lauren never could trust me. Or you." The sirens stopped outside, and the warehouse door was forced open. Police officers stormed in, guns raised, as flashlights illuminated the shadows. Within minutes, Ethan, Lauren, and Nathan were freed. But Ethan couldn't stop thinking about his brother's words. "He's the reason Lauren could never trust me. Or you." "You're safe now," a police officer said, snapping Ethan out of his thoughts. "We'll take you to the hospital, and then you'll need to give a statement." As they were escorted out, Nathan stayed silent, as if carefully considering his words. Ethan finally lost his patience. "Enough with the secrets, Nathan. Who is he? And why did you say that?" Nathan sighed, exhausted. "I'll tell you, but not here." At the hospital, after they were released, Ethan forced Nathan to follow him to a quiet spot where they could talk. Lauren insisted on joining them, and the three of them ended up in a deserted park under the dim light of street lamps. "Now talk," Ethan demanded. Nathan sat down on a bench and began his story. "Years ago, when I was with Lauren, I worked for an investment firm. It was a dirty business. We manipulated information, deceived clients. Anything to make more money." Lauren interrupted, her voice full of bitterness. "You never told me that." "Because I knew you wouldn't forgive me," Nathan admitted. "But that's not all. One of the men we deceived was that guy, Thomas Carter. He lost everything because of a fraud I helped organize. And what does this have to do with me?" Ethan asked, crossing his arms. Nathan looked him in the eye, his face heavy with guilt. When Lauren broke up with me, I was destroyed. I told Thomas she left me for someone else. I used that as an excuse to justify my actions. It was my way of shifting the blame. But it seems like he never forgot. Lauren covered her mouth, horrified. You put Ethan in his path? And now we're all paying for it. I didn't know he would go this far, Nathan said desperately. I thought he gave up. But when I saw the threats, I realized he was still watching us, waiting for the right moment to strike. Ethan felt a wave of anger and pain. He had been dragged into a dirty game that had nothing to do with him. He looked at Lauren, trying to understand what she was feeling, but her eyes were distant. What do we do now? Ethan asked, his voice low. Nathan shook his head. The police are after him. But Thomas isn't the kind of man who'll stop until he gets what he wants. Lauren spoke up, her voice firm despite her fear. We need to face him. Tell the police the whole truth. This won't end until he believes he can still destroy us. Ethan hesitated. Trusting the police meant exposing everything. The past of Nathan, Lauren's troubled relationship, and everyone's involvement in this web of lies. But he knew it was the only way out. The next day, the three of them met with the detectives handling the case. Nathan confessed everything, from the fraud to his involvement with Thomas. The police promised to protect them while they pursued the man. Days later, Thomas was arrested, found in a remote cabin, planning his next move. The truth came to light, and little by little, Ethan, Lauren, and Nathan began to rebuild their lives. Months passed, and Ethan decided to start over. Though his heart was still wounded, he knew he had to move on. Lauren tried to win back his trust, but Ethan realized that their love would never be the same. Nathan, for his part, faced the consequences of his actions, working to redeem himself. He knew the road would be long, but he was willing to change. As he watched a new dawn break, Ethan realized something. As painful as the betrayals were, they had illuminated truths he needed to face in order to find a better future. And that was today's story. If you liked it, then like and follow us to receive more videos from us. See you next time.